that you have tasted
both sides as
it were.
The truth is, there is a difference between a called pastor and a hired pastor. A called pastor will do whatever that is needed to be done to be a pastor and a representative of God. That kind of person is called a pastor. There is another kind of pastor referred to even in the Bible as a hireling. He is hired to be a pastor. And when you have a hireling,
I don't understand that.
Okay, the Bible refers to a man that is hired to be a pastor as a hireling, right?
To be paid to work.
Yeah, to work. It's like you are paid by EBS to work for EBS.
Yes, okay.
EBS is not owned by anybody.
Yes.
Or somebody represents whatever. And so, when you are called by God, you have a distinct message that distinguishes you from the crowd. I always tell people, in the midst of the outstanding, you can stand out still. You are already outstanding in the midst. There's a big group.
That's first amongst equals.
Equals, yes. You can be the leaders, others will follow. You can be first before the rest. It's all about your call. Let me say, let's take from Benin, for example. Omobude does not see vision. He's not a prophet. But God is using him via the word of God. And I know several great men and women in Benin who are doing so well. They don't tell you, I saw, I see. And they are doing well. And I also know of what it means to be a prophet. I was born and bred in Children and Seraphim. The first in Edo State, which is Obende State there, which was called Edo Children and Seraphim. That was where I was born and bred. I lived there for about 20 years of my life. And we moved forward. So when you say prophet...
You've heard of Majek?
Fashek.
Yes.
Yeah, we were close.
He was born in that same...
Yes.
Yeah.
The mother died in the, the mother was a member of one. Yes. And so what we are saying is, it takes the grace of God for you to live in these end times. That's why you see the character that we are saying now.
The hired prophets.
Yes. Several of them, I'm sorry to say, go to India, go to Ghana, go to a place to go and wash their eyes.
Is that godly?
It's not. It's becoming mystical. Church has gone into mysticism. That's why I gave you mention.
But they see.
You good. Yes. The native doctors see. The diviners see.
That's the bottom line of it.
And so, if you are a diviner by the name pastor, you cannot be another Pastor Adeboye. You cannot be Bishop Michael Konko. These are men we have seen over the years. No scandal. No bad name. Based on the word. There are worded pastors who are, we saw it at Hosa in this town. That's the godfather of Pentecostalism around here. And he was not telling us he saw. He didn't see nothing, and yet he had the word that was beyond human comprehension. He speaks and it comes to pass. Why? He was the oracle of heaven. I hear people call themselves prophet of God, the Moses of our time, the oracle, the flame, the fire. You are not giving yourself title. What was the title of Moses? He was a great prophet. What was the title of Jeremiah?
Elijah.
What was the title of Elijah? He only called fire from heaven. But he was not called the fire prophet. But today, for men to distinguish themselves, I saw one somewhere that day, he wrote that he was the oracle of so and so area. So in Benin, I now asked him, do you now segment Benin? That in Igbo, there's one oracle, there's another one in Upper, and there's another one in Aduawa. I mean, what are you? Because each person wants to claim what they really don't
authority,
have. If you are good, God will always exemplify and just amplify your words wherever you go.
But some of these persons now that we just talked about,
yes,
they do this to put food on their table.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Selling in the name of the Lord.
Good. We have heard that song before. But I would always want to use... Yeah, Masromio. Yeah. But I would also want to answer you with the words of Bob Marley. Okay. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
By stealing in God's name.
Yes, if somebody wants to steal from you in God's name, yes, you should be able to emancipate yourself from that kind of slavery. That's another form of prostitution.
You're right. That is true.
So that's just it. We are not supposed to spiritualize evil. But what we see now is that they are spiritualizing evil. That does not mean there are no genuine pastors. There are no genuine prophets. No,
Okay,
I'm not saying that.
I'm sorry, I come from a background where we have the crucifix, we have
Okay, yes,
all
the
that
Catholic,
it takes, the
yes.
Catholic faith.
Yes.
But today, you can't see that in some churches. We call them the ecclesiastical society.
Ecclesiastical, as we call it, yes.
The ecclesiastical society, in which there is no symbol of who they represent. Instead, we have their picture and their wives.
Okay.
Mounted at the altar at the signboard,
Just
which we
open another
worship.
page.
Which we worship. Does this happen in Italy?
No, sir. No, sir. The churches, even in Europe in totality, are registered as business organizations, not even as church. Just like in Italy, there are 7 recognized and official churches known in Italy. 7.
Just 7.
No,
Just 7.
and established. Yes, we have like the Assemblies of God. We have the Jehovah's Witness. We have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have like the Methodists. Those are key churches that have been established over the years. Those are the churches. Like where I belong to, like the Pentecostal. They don't believe in Pentecostalism because it's a Catholic nation. So like if they ask you who are you, they say no, the Crianza Evangelica. You are from the evangelistic church.
Yeah.
So which means we have come in based on evangelism to come and evangelize the people.
Preach the gospel.
Because every Italian born is a Catholic from birth. So it takes the grace of God for anyone to live for any other denomination. And they are spread everywhere. But the South Americans are the biggest names when it comes to evangelical churches.
But do their pictures appear over there? That's
No,
what
because if it is business, like you are registered as business, you can't put your picture because nobody knows you.
So church business, there's church business.
When the big names come to Europe, most of them are not known. It took time for us to sell Pastor E.A. Adeboye. It took time. I mean, I saw Reverend Felix Omobudu was always going to a place in Verona and another place in Torino. Bishop Abraham Chigbundu put their poster in some locations and nobody knows them. But in Nigeria, it's as if what you see now, like a joker or one of the comedians said, when the church is starting, you see the cross. When it starts to make progress, the face of the pastor comes on the signboard. When he has become highly progressed, the face of himself and the wife comes in, and possibly the son and the daughter. He jokingly said, but I felt touched. Why? Because we are not demystifying the power of Christianity. We are making it look like it's a joke now. I'm sorry to say,
but you have told me something today, which I've heard from the Archbishop, Benson Idahosa, one-on-one.
Yes.
Church business.
Yes. No, church is business. Yes, it's business.
Church business.
Even Jesus said, I am going about my Father's business. Why do we call it business? It's a call. Like I used the word when we were talking earlier, a call. You are called. You have been in EBS for several decades, I know. And I was here. I left. But you didn't go. Why? Because it's an inclination. It's a call. And everything around you, the Lord Igbe, whether radio or television, the most celebrated, I've heard all that. Why? You are celebrated with the microphone. You are an on-air personality. That's what gives you the grace to be who you are. If you go to the street, the face they see on TV is what makes you unique. And that's the way life is. If a man of God preaches well, the people will respond to you. That is a simple matter. And when God calls you, he beautifies you.
A man of God preaches well. The people come to him.
They come to you.
Okay, now.
John the Baptist was in the bush.
Is it different from the witness? No, he is a witness.
Okay.
We are three. We are all of the Lord here. He's a witness.
Yes,
and you are a Pentecostal.
Pentecostal, yes.
And,
Catholic, yes. Okay. No, in Pentecostal, yes.
And what I'm trying to say is that,
Go on.
do you recognize pictures of what do you call your pastor now?
You are talking don't just talk about pictures in the first place.
Yes.
No man has a right.
Kingdom society.
No man has a right to say, I own this kingdom. So please, that ends that.
Nobody has a right.
Nobody has a right to say this kingdom hall is mine. No.
They don't call church. They use the word kingdom hall.
Yes, we don't even discuss.
Not the church hall, but kingdom hall, yeah.
Okay, you don't identify the kingdom hall, say by maybe...
I am a member of a particular branch kingdom hall.
How do you identify that branch?
Kingdom hall is a house of God where you worship. That's all. It's not the house for enough you sit and pour.
Chicken.
Yes. So now, what I wanted to ask you, you remember one American preacher, a female?
Yeah, came here
some 2-3 years back.
3 years ago.
Yes, and told us that what she saw in Nigeria that baffled her was, you want a wife? Come. You want a husband? Come.
Yes.
Are you broke? Come. She said, now they are claiming to do what they said they are doing for the people that comes to them. It baffled her. And she said, what she saw in Nigeria, she cannot even say it in America.
Yes.
Does it happen? Does this also happen in Europe?
That people are taking the position of God.
No.
These pastors, this...
it's happening.
Yeah,
no, they have eroded. When one of the prominent along this express road going to Abuja came to a place like Italy, several of the churches had half membership because they all went to go and see what he can see. I have seen people, I've ministered in over 50 churches in Benin. And what you hear them talk about is that man they call, I use the word, say that man they call case. And I've seen so many of them call cases that were wrong. In this past election, we had people on Jonathan Buhari, and they will tell you God said. Then the question is, if Buhari won, and you said it was Jonathan, which God spoke to you? That's it. So the question now is not about you are a child of God, you are a man of God. The question is, which God do you work for? There's God of the belly, which Ayo Fayose call stomach infrastructure. There's God of the belly. There's a God of pride. At least if they say big pastors, I'm one of them. If they say, I've seen churches that are smaller than this place, but the pastor drives an SUV. And that is what makes him feel he's
on top.
He feels, by that car, my nomenclatural standing is high. People know that this is a successful pastor. But let me say one thing. How many cars that are parked in front of your church, the membership or the kind of money that comes in, does not mean your agreement with heaven. Does not mean that God is on your side.
Now wash.
That's just it. There are several places we saw in the past. Edi Unogu was in somewhere in Onitsha. He was seen as a prophet. But when Bakassi boys came, the end also came. And we heard several other stories. I have seen pastors who are purely diviners in this town. I mean, that's why I thank God for the three of us, let me say that. We belong to organizations that cannot show that this man is the owner. You understand? When you have a church, somebody is GO, GD, G that, superintendent this, it creates room for people to abuse. He's a primate, he's a founder. Such words, that is not to say all of them are evil. No. But that word now has made people grown. It's like they are not bigger than the God who called them in the first place. But if God calls you, Adeboye, like I said, left Lagos and went into the bush. I use the word bush, which is the redemption camp today. He went there based on revelation. There are several other churches having their own camps along that line. But God, I asked God this question in 2004. He told me, I sent Adeboye to a redemption camp by revelation. Others are on that same street by information.
No,
that's what God told me in 2004.
You spoke to God.
I asked God, why is this now? It's like
have you heard from God?
I hear from him daily.
Have you heard from God?
God talks to everybody.
I've not heard.
The character you portray.
So maybe you teach me how to hear from the Lord.
No.
Because my conscience,
Yes.
my Holy Spirit in
Yes.
me, which
Yes.
is God,
Yes.
reasons with me.
And that is God. That's what we say you hear from God.
Okay, that is God.
You are led by the Spirit of God. Is not coming to meet you.
No,
but he uses his Spirit
I was talking about,
to direct you.
I was talking about the kind of Moses-like revelation.
No, it's
when he heard the sound.
Okay. No, it still happens. Let me say, there are times you are led by revelation. There are times you are led by trance.
No, I don't understand that.
Revelation. You can have a revelation of yours. Good. You can be led by dream.
Yes.
In a dream, you see a path is drawn and do this, and you wake up and say, oh, God is directing me. You can be led in a trance. There are sometimes you just sit down in less than 1 minute. When you are not relaying what you saw in 1 minute, it will look like you have done 2 hours or sleep and you have not slept. God still speaks. And there are times he still speaks like the days of Moses. Let me give one example. I was going in a place in Lagos. I was to pick a cab somewhere. And I heard very clearly, don't go yet. I was trying to negotiate and get the vehicle. I eventually couldn't get that vehicle. So while I was standing, the person I was supposed to go and meet met me at that same place waiting for vehicle.
Wow.
That's how God works. But if I had said, no, I already had my transport, let me get the vehicle and run away. The person, when you now call him, when you get to his house, you say, no, I'm in your house, I'm waiting for you somewhere. So God leads in diverse ways.
Now reminds me of what happened 40-something, 50 years ago.
So you have heard from God?
No, no, my mother asked me this question. She's alive now. I was as a very stubborn child. She now said, it is 2 minds that God gave to every human. One will say, do this thing, beat this person, do whatever, and you obey that. Don't you have that second one that will say,
don't do it.
Don't do it.
And that one is very soft.
No, exactly.
It's tender, and you may very much overlook.
Yes. So that's how it is.
In most cases, what you have just said, Paul, is at times, or most times, God speaks. But like we are told, the still small voice. In most cases, the loud one is a negative one.
And you will not know.
And you will always believe. Let us say God tells you now, give her your key. Even as a bishop, as a pastor, I've heard several testify to that they prayed for maybe 1 week or 2 weeks, resisting that this cannot be God. How can God tell me to give her the only car I have? Why? Because you are not. But if you are a child of God and you are conscious of the Spirit of God in you, which many refer to as conscience, when he speaks, you will hear.
Okay, no, sir, we want to say thanks for coming on the program today, and that's the